So hello world, welcome back to another one of my videos. I'm Amelia Green, as you should know. Um, so I'm gonna go back to doing a trans topic video. This one in particular is gonna be on the subject of detransitioners. This is not really a subject that comes up too often especially in the trans community, particularly because a lot of trans people feel that the stories, the conversation around detransitioners invalidates their identity, and I mean, rightfully so. They have right to be concerned with the topic, because there is a lot of people who try to use these stories um, to try to point to saying, oh, transgenderism is not real. And I mean, they like to point to stories like I brought up Walter, who I don't know why I still can't remember his last name, as well as Dave Raymer, who both of those people transitioned under a horrible, unethical doctor. And people love to point to those stories as saying, oh, look, see, it's not real. But the real sad truth is that those stories are not a representation of the whole. They are an individual story. They are a story about an individual person. And a matter of fact, as I've argued, Dave Raymer was a perfect example of something that didn't disprove transgenderism. It actually proved it. Because yeah, he detransitioned, but he detransitioned because he was not transgender. The doctor tried to force him to transition and it didn't work. He knew something was not right. The point being, people to this day like to point to these detransitioner stories and say, look, see, it's not real. I do believe, I do have a belief that, and I'll get a little more into this in a bit, I do have a belief that there is a problem with the trans trendiness of it all. So, like I said, it's a very personal experience. It's an experience that all of us have from a personal perspective. I'm a perfect example of somebody who transitioned, and oh my gosh, am I so much happier with myself. I'm doing things today I would have never expected, things that I counted out. I mean, I wanted to be a medical doctor since I was really young, and I counted it out. I did not do any preparation through my teens, through my 20s, and then all of a sudden here I am, 34 years old, and oh, well, now I'm a pre-med student. And that has a lot to do with the fact that I had such a low self-esteem. I had so much hate and dislike for the person I was. I just said, no, I'm never going to do that stuff. And I just basically, I like to use the word social, then the word that would come after. I'm not going to use it because it would very likely get this, prevent this video from getting suggested. Anyways, and that was what I was doing. I basically lived in my parents' basement with no hopes of becoming nothing more than that example of a guy named Chuck who lives in his mom's basement. And that was not who I was. I was a hidden away person in a shell, oppressed and, just suffering every single day to just come out, and I did. Ultimately, I lost a lot. I lost family, friends, so much. There has been a huge commitment. And the thing is, I can't look back at it and say, oh, I wish I never did that. Yeah, I'm grieved. I'm massively grieved by what I look back at. But in so much way, I look at it and go, I can't imagine my life being any different. Because I'm an example of a successful transitioner. Just the other day, I was over at a friend's house and kind of chatting with some other girls. My friend was the only one who knew I was trans, and it was kind of funny because during the conversation, the subject came up of, I got asked by these other women, oh, do you want to have children one day? And I just kind of smiled and like, yeah, I do. I mean, because the truth is, I do want children still one day, and I mean, even if that's by adoption. But I was like, I guess I could have at least said I can't have children. which is always an option, but I opted for just going the safe route and just being like, yes. Anyways, there is a huge sacrifice that has to be made to be transgender. And getting back to that subject of detransitioners, they are valid. They are valid people. I don't at all think it's regretful. I mean, really honestly, I hear their stories and my heart just crimps because it feels so hurtful to see somebody who was already hurt and broken try to find a solution, and that was not the solution. And to be honest, I mean, when I started, I was willing to accept that there was going to come, that there was the possibility that this wasn't a solution, and I was going to take the consequences for it. However, that ultimately ended up not being the case, and I'm happy. Like, I have no, 2.5 years later, I have no plans to undo anything that I've done. I know who I am. I'm committed to this identity. Enough about me going into that. There's still a lot ahead of me too for my future too. The point is so like a couple months ago, there's this one detransitioner. Her story blew up big because she was on 60 Minutes, and there was a lot of people that got like a little irate about it, both in the trans community and whatnot. And she talked about so she was a female to male to female transition. And I mean, honestly, I'm very happy for her because everything that she experienced, a lot of what she experienced was the fact that she was able to detransitioning with very low side effects from the testosterone, I think is amazing. And you know, I still grieve with her story. I've heard other same thing, female detransitioners who have told stories of this stuff, and some of them don't end up so lucky. They have really bad side effects, things that they're going to have to live with because of it. And the same goes for male detransitioners. If I was to detransition, there's going to be things that are going to haunt me for quite a while, particularly the fact I have boobs now and I'm a post-op trans woman. But I don't have to worry about that because I'm on the other side and I actually know I'm happier. There is no threat of me ever going back to that screwed up life. It was not me. I know the person on the inside, and my person up here is a woman. Like, I can't believe how many times I talk to other women and other people, and my brain is just firing exactly in the social stereotype of a woman. Not to say that that's what makes you a woman, but gosh, am I on that level. It's even a little bit hard to explain. Like, sometimes when I get mad at somebody, I do the whole shunning thing, you know, and I don't even try to do it. I try to not do it, but point is, so it's stories like hers that really shine this interesting light on transgenderism, and there is a lot of people who take a step back and think. I mean, it is worth concern for some governments and medical professionals who look at these stories and go, well, are we wrong? Like, for example, I saw a report recently that was talking about how in Britain, because like it's particularly a subject that comes up with young transitioners, children. Like, we have a story in the US of this one boy where his mom is basically trying to force him to transition, and it's a completely screwed up situation where this mother should lose custody of her son because it's obvious that he is not going along with it and she's just doing it for fame. And that's the thing I want to mention. It's the fame. It's the attractiveness of the subject. There is way too much media who promotes transgenderism as this fad. Like, and it's real easy for young kids to be influenced by this and to see, like, even me, even I am an example of the kind of person who I can get on YouTube here and talk about how much happier I am and how much amazing, and then someone younger than me might look at me on YouTube and go, I want what she has, because it's obvious that I'm happier. I know that I show fruits of it. I show evidence of my happiness. But the truth is again, that's my personal story. I can't tell you how many times I've had a couple times. I just contradicted myself. I've had other questioning people, particularly young boys, who have kind of been like, I'm not really sure, and I ultimately got to tell them, like, I'm sorry, I can't. All I can do is tell you how I felt. I can't tell you the say all if you are. That's your choice to be made. You need to go through it, and it's really important that you talk to a mental health professional who knows what they are doing. There are two sides of that aisle. You have the people who are completely mental health people who are completely against transgenderism, and then you got the other people on the other side who are so into it they'll just give anybody the thumbs up no matter what they say. And I do want to, real quickly, to try not make this too long, one thing I do want to talk on is there is a difference, and at least I feel there's a difference between male and female detransitioners. And I mean, it's kind of the same thing amongst trans women and trans men, but there is something very important about the differences in the sexes when it comes to transitioning your gender. Because, like, for example, with the story of Dave Raymer, what it proved was that your sexual identity is not by your environment. It's innate. It's acquired from your birth. You are born and you know something's off, and that's why, like, people like me, I'm not the only other trans person out there. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-non-binary. I'm not anti-people, making. I'm not disinclusive. I will accept anybody no matter what gender they say they are. I will do my best. I mean, it's not my place to judge, and it's not my place to go, you're, because if I'm going to do that, then I would be a hypocrite for asking people not to laugh at me. The point being is that when we have this idea that it's an environmental factor, that is when we get all of these genders. When, I'm sorry, I do believe there is only two genders. There's only two sexes, male and female. Yes, there's in between, and I do believe that it's on a spectrum. But, like, for example, there is one person I've met who apparently he's questioning, and he came to his mom and said that he believed that he was bi-gender. He had two genders. He was both male and female. And as he explained it to her, she was just kind of looking at him like, just all people are like that. Like, all men should have a mix of male and femaleness. All women should have a combination of male and femaleness. It's not, again, sex is on a spectrum. And again, I'm not trying to discriminate against that. I mean, if that's what somebody feels they are, that's fine. I believe people should be allowed to express their own emotions and self-identity. But the thing is, still, is when we believe in this environmental factor, that's when we get the people who say things like, they're a tree. And it's a completely contrasting world from who I am. Again, I'm not discriminating. I'm not counting those people out. And matter of fact, if you're watching this movie or this YouTube video and you do believe you're a tree, fine. By all means, I'm not gonna tell you like you're whole screwed up, because again, I would be a hypocrite for saying anything like that. It's more so the fact I just don't understand it. So it's not part of my identity, and it's not something that's really worth discussing. But going back to detransitioners, I mean, male and female detransitioners, there is a stark difference. One thing that I commonly will notice with trans women is that we get like this overly effeminate exterior. We'll go from being these like dead stare, dead eye, lifeless corpse to all of a sudden becoming hyper feminine. And I'm not saying that's a problem, I'm just saying it kind of gives me a concern that they're allowing an environmental factor of what is a female stereotype to affect who they are. And even more so on the more dangerous end of things. Like, I think that's great. You know, they grew up in kind of a masculine experience. Now they're experiencing a hyperfeminism. And like for me, I got hyper feminine when I first came out and even worked up to it. But today, who I am is a much more combination of male and female. Not, I will never say that I'm non-binary or anything like that. But what I'm trying to say is, I came eventually to the realization that I was more of a tomboy type girl. I'm not hyper feminine. Of course, I love wearing dresses. I love doing girly things, but that's not always who I am. I believe myself to be more like a normal human being, like what most women and men should be. Point is then I see the opposite happening when I look at trans men. Again, I'm not discriminating, and again, it's also kind of a little hard for me to analyze it because I don't always really understand what trans men went through to get where they are. Matter of fact, it can sometimes kind of feel like a punch in the heart, because a lot of times when I see them, and I'm sure sometimes they can feel the same way, I do know something, and this is a personal struggle. This is nothing against a trans man. There is that part of my heart that just sits there and is kind of like, oh my gosh, I want to be a woman so bad, and here you are negating what you were blessed with. You were blessed with a womb. You were blessed with the ability to have children. You were blessed with being a woman, and you're negating it. But again, that's a personal struggle that has nothing to do with them. That's not me discriminating. That's just me simply saying it hurts, and I wish there was the technology for you to just give me what you have, and you could have everything I had, because I didn't want it either. So it's a two-way street. The point is that something, and I had this discussion with my roommate once, something that we both have been really noticing with trans men is trans men, when they, particularly once they come out, become very cold and sometimes cruel. They no longer act, they have no compassion. They lose their empathy. Like, that was like the exact word we used. They lose their empathy for other people. They don't have compassion anymore. They don't see situations and feel sorry. No, it's about, like, I had an experience with one trans man, and I can't tell you how many times he kind of got on my nerves, because, you know, here I am trying to do something nice. I'm trying to show him I care. I'm trying to show that this is you matter to me. I invited him over for pizza, and then all he could do was complain that I got the wrong kind of pizza. Not once was there a thanks for considering me, and then I went out of my way to go get the pizza he liked. I mean, it is what it is. I understand that not everybody, like, I had moments like that too. But it still was one of those things where it's just like, you have no empathy. And that's even kind of hard for me to talk about, because again, there's plenty of women and men out there who are not trans, who do stupid crap like this all the time. But it is a trend I seem to notice with trans men, and it's concerning. It's very concerning to me, not because of their identity, not because they're trans, but it becomes concerning to me because it shows the level of toxic masculinity in our society. Because I remember, as I was growing up, something that felt really strong to me about masculinity was it was always cold. It was always, you can't have empathy, you can't have emotions, you can't. So I feel like a lot of cases when it comes to trans men, they see this way, that this toxic masculinity that they identify with. I mean, they identify with the masculinity, but they don't see the toxic pre-appended part, and they mimic the toxic, and then they become horrible people. I mean, that's why, like, for me, I've met plenty of trans women on the opposite end of the spectrum who are horrible people, so cruel, so entitled, feel like you have to bow over and do everything they say. But the honest truth is, I think it has a lot to do with how they're taking, again, It's toxic masculinity that they're carrying over from their previous gender, and they're now taking it over into their new gender. And it's something that they need to let go of. I mean, it was something I struggled with. Empathy, compassion. I had to get to a point of saying, like, I used to never want to do anything for anybody. I can't tell you how many times I would have a friend call me or something like that and ask for a favor from me, and I would shut them down. That was also because I didn't like myself. But the point is that that's a point of I was a bitter, jerkish person. And then after I transitioned, now I'll go out of my way for people. Like just the other day, even after my roommate told me to not worry about it, I asked a favor and she asked me to get her a pickle, and I had trouble finding pickles, and I don't know why she likes pickles so much. I don't like them. But anyway, I went way out of my way to finally get her a pickle. And I sat there and told her, I said, I kept my promise because I have that much faith and trust and respect. And I would hope that you would do the same for me. But anyways, after taking that long detour, back on the subject of detransitioners, particularly when it comes to female detransitioners, I think what happens for them is, again, they notice they become shameful of their female identity. As a matter of fact, I was watching the interview with this one girl who was on 60 Minutes, and something she mentioned was how, it was interesting because it's something that we trans women can't necessarily, or even men, could really understand. She was talking about how our society hypersexualizes a lot of things about women. And she brought up the fact that, it was like one of the reasons she hated her body was because society's like, well, you're a woman, you can have children, your boobs are hypersexualized. Everything about the female form is hypersexualized. Matter of fact, I think that's sometimes why trans women get kind of messed up. Anyways, so the point is that I think they see it and they feel shameful, and they think they have to be a man to be strong. They have to protect themselves. They're weak and inferior in a way. So anyways, that's kind of all I need to say. Otherwise, when it comes to other ends, these young kids, they're looking at it as a trend. They don't actually see it as a true thing. And it's unfortunate. And it really causes a lot of harm to the trans community. I wish it wasn't the case, and there's really no easy answer for fixing it on all 4 areas of the discussion. Anyways, I'm going to end this here because my phone's about ready to go dead. And I will talk to you all in the future. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you in my next video. Bye now.